Okay, so am I sharing? Okay.
Yep.
Yeah. All right. So I guess I just threw out some dates. The AP exam is May 4th. Does that sound right, Chris?
It's yeah, yeah. Star
Was
Wars Day. May the fourth be with you.
Oh yeah. So I guess we can start the day after that, or whenever you want to start. And then we get out of school not, I don't know, 10th, I think. But in that, I mean, I don't know if this really matters right now, but the start date and
Yeah, that's not really critical at this point.
no.
I mean, there's around a month or so, so you can make it fit.
Yep. Okay, so we're talking about, like, I think it'll be a little bit the same way as the mapping they focus on maybe having the kids write some sort of geographic question about a topic related to AP Human Geography that fits with this year's theme, which we said was globalization. We just thought that was going to be a pretty easy theme for, if we want to change the theme every year, that would be great. But globalization pretty much can fit in anywhere in AP Human Geography. So then the central question of the topic will be related to one or more of the skills. And so this is the part I kind of need more feedback on. And then they're going to create a map and a story map featuring their question, their map, and the analysis of their question. I don't know. So the theme is going to be globalization. And oh yeah, and so this was in red, this was kind of my question. So we met, I don't know, in mid-December. We, Kelly was there and Dave Lanegren, Kelly Swanson, and said like, oh, we could maybe use those 5 skill categories from the AP course guide to kind of guide what we want them to do. And so the 5 skill categories are concepts and processes, spatial relationships, data analysis, and scale analysis. And so I pulled out 2 of those, and I kind of pulled out the ones I thought would fit really well with globalization. I don't know if if we should just leave them all in there and say, just use these skills, but I thought like the spatial relationships, especially the one that says, explain the significance of similarities and differences, and then to which a geographic concept or phenomena actually the effects in different contexts and regions. I don't know. So I thought those kind of fit well with globalization concepts or with the theme. And then the skill analysis, thinking a little bit about the spatial relationships, comparing different characteristics across various scales. So you might have like a local, you're looking at something that's happening locally, but you're looking at how does what happens locally affect things at multiple scales. And then, yeah, so these are the ones I pulled out. I don't know if there's more that we want to put in there, or if we want to, or if we don't want to say like you really have to fit them into one of these skill areas, and just maybe leave it more open. And
yeah, you could possibly leave it up to the student as well on what skill categories that they wanted to choose. Maybe choose 2 or 3 out of the 5. So something along those lines. That way they can maybe choose something that they're immediately a little bit more comfortable with, I suppose. Perhaps a little bit more variance in, what kind of projects are being done too.
I'm gonna kind of agree with Chris on this. My only experience with this is related to the Minnesota on the Map contest. The first year we did it, it was totally wide open. It was just like pick a topic inside of Minnesota and come up with a story map. So obviously now we're working with high school kids. I still think the first time around might be a good idea to keep it as open-ended as we can, because we don't know what kind of things kids are going to come up with. And if you constrict them too much, you might lose some creativity in terms of topics and the way kids want to approach it. So if you even said, you have to have at least one of their or two skills, from the, what is it, 5 categories?
Yep.
Just say, have at least 2 skills, each one from a different category, and let them, like Chris says, maybe pick ones that they're more comfortable with.
Mm-hmm.
And that way they're addressing the skills, they have to build it in. And so, but you're giving them a little bit more control of what it's going to look like. And
Yep.
then I think in a second year, we can take a look at, okay, what did they come up with? Okay, where do we need to tighten things up? Or is it, hey, this was awesome.
Yeah.
Let's just turn them loose and let them do, because sometimes kids come up with unbelievable ideas. Every year I'm kind of amazed when I see what these junior high kids do. I'm like, wow, I would have thought of that. So that's
Yeah.
So Molly,
Yeah.
what do you envision the final product of this looking like? Is this something that, students would complete the story map and then, kind of leave it at that? Is this something that they would, have some sort of like a presentation format in with the story map? What's the final result in your mind?
I think the like where I'm at right now is just the story map. So it would be like the mapping contest, but I mean, I guess we could, within our individual classrooms, you can do whatever you want with it. But in terms of if we're going to be, people are going to be sharing them amongst classrooms or to Jim or whatever, probably just the story map. Jim, is that what we're talking about?
Yeah, one way to think of this, Chris, is the story map, if it's well done, we should be able to give it to somebody who has never heard about this topic or even given any thought to it in the general public. They would open up the story map and go through it and go, aha, I get it. I understand what you're trying to present to me. So
yeah.
Part of the challenge is for kids to think about an end product that literally anybody could understand. It's not some esoteric thing that only if you've taken AP geography, you'd be able to understand it. So the story map should be kind of a standalone. Just the link is out there. Somebody opens it up and they go, oh, wow, this is really cool.
Mm-hmm. I am gonna say, so like going back to the skills, if we leave it pretty open-ended, I think that is fine. But I think there should at least be some skills that are more in like the explain or compare categories. So like, for example, some of the skills that are just like identify the data presented in a map, so we want them to go beyond. So maybe I'll try to write that like somehow like, with a focus on the skills that ask students to explain or compare. Because I think also, even with like the regular Minnesota on the Map project, we've seen a number of maps that just say like, oh, here's a location of things, right? And we want the focus to be on the analysis.
Yeah, very much so.
Am I correct in that the skill listing is kind of like a hierarchy from A to 5A down to 5 whatever it is, that as you go down there the skill gets to a higher level, or am I wrong?
Yeah. Oh, sorry, Molly, go ahead. I pulled them up here.
I think in general that would be a good way to think about them. I'm not sure.
Well, so for instance, for data analysis, like the first one is to identify the types of data presented in maps in quantitative and geospatial data. Okay, so that one's fairly straightforward. The rest of them, are describe, explain, compare, explain. So there's a degree of analysis that is included, really with the rest of them. And like looking through all 5, There really do seem to be some very, higher order processes included with all 5 of these skills. So, if you would, in your wording here, I mean, if you're going to leave it a little bit more open for students, I don't know if it matters really quite so much which of these skills that they pick, maybe
Okay.
as long as that they would address, all the relevant parts, because then there will be some pretty solid analysis that's a part of it.
Yeah. You're thinking address all the relevant parts of.
So like A through E, for instance.
Oh, right. So if they're focusing on a particular skill, do you think we should then have them focus on, kind of like pick a skill category to really focus on?
Well, yeah, maybe, I mean, a couple, I guess. I don't know what that right number is.
Yeah.
But,
With the theme being globalization, I when I take a look at these skills, I really feel like the scale analysis is a really
agreed.
good fit for globalization. But yeah, I like having it open-ended. And once again, like I think Jim, you had a good point, like leaving it more open-ended, and then we can always reassess, based on what we get. Okay, so.
And year by year, obviously, depending on the topic, the skills that would be most commonly used would certainly vary. Maybe even because I think you're absolutely right. In that spatial relationships and scale analysis look as though they would be the 2 that probably make the most sense. So students choose one of those and then something else, perhaps.
Oh yeah.
We could direct them in, because yeah, clearly I think those 2 are the 2 that are going to best be used in this year's theme.
I'm just kind of making some notes on this document that I'm just from what we're talking about.
Yeah, no, I'm just thinking about what you just said. Those 2 categories right there, especially the scale one, if you're dealing with the idea of globalization, because you make a big point. How do you identify something that's a global issue that affects the local area? Can you identify that? And then what's going on in a local area that actually has a global impact? So you're operating at 2 very different scales. And I suppose there's in between, from the local to the state to the national to the global. But I think given globalization as the major theme for this first time around, I think that makes sense that at a minimum, scale analysis would need to be kind of a part of it.
Okay.
And then anything else they want to address, they can. Just based on what with working with your kids, by the time you get to the end of the year and they've taken their AP test, I'm trying to come up with a word, how well are these kids able to verbalize their understanding of what these skills are in terms of actually using them, seeing them, using them? Do you think they're functioning at a fairly high level?
I really worked on these skills last year before the AP exam, but that's because I had a month to review before the AP exam. And then my goal obviously was to bring in these skills a lot more this year. And then I feel like I have not. I don't know. I feel like I'm just above water. I don't know if my kids would be able to tell me what the skills are, but before the AP exam, they should be able to kind of talk through some of these. We usually talk about, like the degree to which, the limitations, I don't know. How are you feeling, Chris? You have
Uh, my students would not do well at all. They wouldn't. So especially in particular, my second semester students, where I'm going to try to get the entirety of the AP curriculum delivered in about 12 weeks.
Whoa.
So no. I mean, this kind of activity, it definitely puts us in a position to do more in-depth, study and practice with these skills. Kids actually get to do some geography finally after the College Board test is over, which I look very forward to. So because until then, it's a pretty constant grind, just making it through the very basics on our curriculum, theories and concepts. We don't have time to really develop these skills with any kind of clarity.
I would agree, and I think you're definitely in a much more difficult position.
They are juniors, and most of my kids do come in with a reasonably good amount of academic skills that help them in picking up pretty quickly a lot of these kinds of things. But yeah, to practice it in the classroom is.
So let me just throw one thing out. To me, part of the beauty of this is kind of what Chris just said, and that is finally the kid gets to actually do some geography. My guess is kids are going to be more driven by the topic than they are by the skill and the analysis end of it. In other words, they're going to want to pursue a topic that they're actually interested in. The side benefit will be that they're going to use some of these skills to help them approach that topic. Does that sound correct or not?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep.
So if you can get the kids excited about something, it's a whole lot easier to teach them something when they're excited about it. I mean, you may end up doing more teaching while they're doing this than you did at other times. So you're going to start raising questions because they're going to be digging in a way they hadn't dug in before, where they're just trying to learn something versus try to produce something. So I think there's a teaching opportunity here as well. And that's why I think, open-endedness this first time around and picking a good topic and a good question, and then just getting started on the research and seeing what they come up with is going to be very interesting.
Yeah.
And then
yeah, and I think if we do leave it open-ended, I mean, maybe we do say like, hey, these are the skill categories that we think fit best with the theme. But you're definitely able to go into different directions. I think as a teacher, I think I would guide my students to these themes.
Yeah.
I don't know. So do we want, I mean, I guess, so we've kind of talked about a number of things. We've talked about saying, let's just give them all the skills and say, pick 2 of them. We've said, choose one of these 2 skills and then a different one, or saying that these are the 2 skills. So what, I'm fine with anything. What do you guys think is the right approach?
Well, my impression here, just listening, is if you presented, okay, we're going to do a project, it's going to be globalization. We're interested in both viewing it from the local and the global end. Which skill do you think would apply to a project like that? I'm pretty sure the kids are going to come up with scale almost by themselves if you didn't even tell them. Mm-hmm. But either way, I probably just say, look, this is an activity that is going to ask you to look at something at least 2 different scales, local and global. So, look at those skills there and make sure that you can do an explanation of the degree to which a geographic concept, process, model, et cetera, explains. And don't make it too, don't try and put roadblocks in the way versus, I don't know if that's making sense, but you know,
Mhm.
I'm thinking if I was a kid in high school and somebody gave me a chance to do this, a more open-ended approach would be much more appealing than trying to put me in a box and say, okay, have fun, but I want you to just be
Yeah.
in the little box here doing it.
Okay.
So
You
that's
know,
just my thought.
some sort
No,
of like a kind of a checklist, so to speak, of, you know, all right, let's think about our topic here, and let's take a look at our skills. And, you know, I mean, you could let students kind of go through that, you know, on their own, you know, as a you know, introductory component here to this activity. And, you know, in the process of picking the skills that they would like to go and take a look at, I mean, it gives us, number one, a chance to, you know, really develop those, or, you know, put those in front of the students and let them, you know, kind of chew on those for a little bit. And, you know, then after they've, you know, kind of looked at these and, you know, started to think about how exactly is it that I would use these? How would this guide my research and my final product? You know, maybe, maybe that would be enough to, in some cases, direct students toward, you know, some of those skills like scale analysis that very, very clearly are a part of it. But, you know, then perhaps some kid would really be all about the concepts and processes because they've got this great idea and they really want to run with it.
Mhm.
You know, while some other kids might struggle. So,
and I can write that up in, you know, like in what, you know, if teachers are interested in doing this project, I can write that up as like, hey, like here's the introductory like way of thinking about it, giving, you know, asking these questions to your students, and maybe even saying like, you know, we are kind of thinking that these two skills might work well for the theme, but it is really open-ended. You guys can take it however you want, you know, or like your students can take it however you want. So good. Okay, so I'll make some edits to that part and try to reflect what we've been talking about in that portion. So then some questions. Yeah, questions to help you think about the theme. So then it was just more just like, okay, so here's some questions you can use to help your students think about those. How does something that happens at one scale influence something that happens at other scales? To what extent do things in one place influence those in others, which are essentially the same question. I probably could put those two together. And how do the characteristics of a particular place shape what happens? So if, you know, you have a local event and it's happening somewhere else, or, you know, it's like influencing something that's happening somewhere else, like how does it change when we change the location or whatever? Any other questions that we could add there?
I think those are great.
yeah, I don't have something that's just, you know, falling off my tongue that we gotta know. So I think
Okay.
we're looking okay there.
So then I just wrote out some steps to help you think about the topic, determine a topic that, you know, so at this point, you know, students have kind of talked about all of the themes, or at least they've learned, you know, human geography already. So, you know, having them start to think a little bit about a topic that they might be interested in that they learned about already, a place that they're curious about. So this is the part. So I think, Jim, we said it doesn't necessarily need to have a local angle. It could be something that happens, you know, they might be really interested in like South Sudan and they want to do something about South Sudan, or did we say like, or did we want to try to keep this more local?
The only caveat would be, and this would be if you think somebody that's a junior, and Molly, you have ninth graders?
Yeah.
So if you think that there's a student or two who would go, you know what, you could take this and enter it next year in the Minnesota on the Map competition if you would like, but there is one constraint, and that's the main topic has to be within the state of Minnesota.
Mm-hmm.
The kid goes, says, well, no, I'm not really interested in that. I don't really care. I just want to do something I'm interested in, then it's, yeah, South Sudan, fine. I mean, it's,
Right.
um,
Yeah, I think I want to leave. I think I'm gonna leave it open-ended. I think you always have the kid, especially probably Chris, with your kids have probably already taken like world history at some point, or you know, so they might have like a place that they're really interested in or a topic they're really interested in. I did make a note here, you know, if they can choose any place that they want, or if they choose to center their map on research on Minnesota, they would have the opportunity to enter the story map. Or even if they're interested in a different place, if they show how it's connected to local events or local processes, you know, they can always talk about, you know, I don't know, the economy of China and relate it to what's going on in Minnesota.
Yeah, I've done a project at the end of the year, more about titled like global issues, and have students look at it from a variety of spatial perspectives and provide some sort of a cause and effect analysis to try to help explain why something might be happening where it is. And in doing so, I've always left it open for students who would like to, look at something with a little bit more of a global, reach, or something that is more local. But let me tell you, I've had to tell students, listen, like I just don't want to see any more presentations about the Mayo Clinic. You gotta stop. So, really like trying to force kids, in fact, to think a little bit beyond the community, because my experience has been that there's just not been as many really good presentations that kids are really interested in if I've really made them look at something that is more local. So because there is so much interest out there, and we study the world all year long, so why would we stop now? So.
Mm-hmm. Good.
Okay, so I'm just going to throw one thing in. You can create a story map that doesn't have a map. It's possible. I mean, you can create a presentation without a map. We're asking these kids to make a map, which infers they're either going to go find a set of data that's already been mapped and use it to support their thesis, whatever that happens to be, or they're going to go out and collect data themselves somehow or another that targets specifically something they want to deal with, which would in all likelihood more likely be a local issue, because you could actually collect data on a local level. And then further down the list, I said, then it seems to me then they need to do two things. They have to identify, is there a pattern that can be explained, and is there a distribution of data that can be explained? So when we're thinking about this topic, other than just putting places on a map, which would be like a pin for this and a pin for that, and here's this and here's that, you actually have a set of data that's been mapped that shows a pattern, that shows a distribution of information that reveals something about the topic that you're approaching. So now, does that sound like that's something these kids would be able to do?
I would like that to kind of be the goal of a project like this, I think. Yeah.
And there is a ton of data. You get into the Living Atlas layers and the amount of already in the bag data that kids could find related to just about any topic that you can think of.
Yeah.
Is out there.
And that's, I think, so when I think about doing the mapping project last year with my students, a lot of, I had them create a map, but most of them were finding layers in the Living Atlas. They were filtering those layers to be able to show what they wanted to, like we have all these layers that have endless data, part of them. And so helping them say like, okay, you found this layer. Now, what does this layer actually, have in it? Which parts of this layer do you want displayed in order to?
Right.
Yeah. So I definitely think that we do need to. I didn't have anything on here about like a rubric for what we really want. We obviously know we want them to be related to a theme. We want them to be related to these skills. But the pattern, you know, the patterns and the distribution analysis, actually using their map to, I think we already have good criteria from the Minnesota on the Map project related to those types of things.
Yeah, no, I think eventually you need a rubric, because that'll give kids direction. I just got the 10-minute warning, by the way.
Okay.
Well, we've got
Yeah, no, I think this has been super helpful. I guess, and you know, then I just wrote, you know, so here's some questions. So we want them, like, or at least I think I want my students to be asking some sort of question. Like their central theme of their project is some sort of geographic question related to globalization. And so getting them to start thinking about how do we ask these questions, and then once we've asked the questions, how do we map it? Which I think that part might be actually even a little bit hard, you know, like these are like some questions that kids could ask, like how did the killing of George Floyd lead to protests in other parts of the world? But I think the harder part would be like getting them from go to that question to now how do we show that on a map could be more difficult. I think that's the piece I'm not quite sure, like how if a kid wanted to talk about this first question.
Sure. So I mean, they could probably create, okay, so here's first off where the protests occurred. And then, I mean, what I always wanted to have kids do would be to try to come up with some sort of, correlate data, some sort of cause or effect. And so, the other parts of the world where protests occurred, what were some of the other maybe demographic factors about those places that, made it more likely that protests might occur there? Or were there any, consequences, like did COVID outbreak occur, in these places or something along those lines? So, some sort of correlate data to, be able to, include here for like this mapping component, I think would be great.
Yep.
I agree. And Molly, another thing to think about is one way to get buy-in on this is when we go into the session on GeoFest, is we're looking for input from those teachers as well.
Mm-hmm.
This is the first time around, and people are much more likely to buy into something that they have actual input into.
Yep.
So, they're the people that are in the field working with the kids. You guys know your kids, they know their kids, they know what they might and might not be prepared to do.
Yeah.
How much sophistication can we expect in ArcGIS? My guess is not a real high level, unless there's, do they want to do a survey 1, 2, 3 where they go out in the general public and get data? I mean, they can use Snapchat, they can use whatever social media they want. They can put a survey 1, 2, 3 out there that anybody, any place can enter data into. I mean, so there's interesting ways to collect data. So I'm just saying, I'm really excited about this whole idea, and I think you guys are the pioneers, but I think like when we started the other one, we didn't know what we were going to end up with, but it ended up being, way better than we thought.
Yeah, I really like what you just said about like, the GeoFest session is obviously like, hey, here's like what we have so far, but like part of this presentation is like, what kind of input do you guys have? How do you see this like actually working in your classroom? Do you see like, yeah, to get the feedback, because this is obviously still, if I'm presenting it on January 30th and this doesn't really need to be rolled out until May, there's still a lot of work that can happen, and that feedback could be really essential. I think even just this, like talking to you, Chris, like you're in the same situation, like just like talking through like, well, how would this actually work? Like, how does this actually play out has been really helpful. So thank you.
I've been thinking about this. I mean, I would, if I were going to be, implementing this here coming up, this May, which I would love to, realistically, I would want to probably introduce this project, to the students, I mean, realistically, a couple of weeks into the semester, just get them thinking about it.
Mhm.
And, then along the way, as we're, in, well, the political geo unit, here's a, the European Union, what an amazing opportunity to, look at the effect it has had on globalization or something along those lines.
Mhm.
And, and also just teaching students how to use the interface is something as well. I gave kids last semester in our distance learning very sort of pseudo school world that we had last spring. I gave kids the option of if they wanted to do more of a project based or just kind of final test for geography. And I only had a couple of students choose to do a project. And I asked that they just try out story maps because I wanted to see how, kids would do with it. And, I had a couple of my really high flyers that were able to put together something that, looked passable as a story map. I didn't do anything with them at all. I just literally said, here's an example of something that I made in story maps. You play with it, you go. And, that's not going to work with, the entirety of, our students that are looking to build something here. And, just, I'm trying to envision how I would get kids working with story maps beforehand so
Mhm.
that when this project comes around, it's not also trying to figure out the interface along with this project and so on and collecting
Yeah.
data.
And I
So,
think a month sounds like a really long time to do, like to have to like just dedicate to a project, but also in this year with the block scheduling and everything like that, that isn't
No,
yeah,
it's not.
all that much
Quickly.
class time.
No.
I'm really hoping by May I would actually get, if I'm going to do this in May, like I'd actually get to be in person with my students, which would be awesome. But we obviously have no certainties there either.
Yeah.
All right, I think we're
Okay.
gonna
It's
get
like
our
just a
warning
2-minute
here.
warning.
All right, well, I do think I have enough ideas to at least present at GeoFest. I'll make some edits to this and maybe just send it out if you guys want to make any more comments on it. And I don't know, Jim, like, do we, no, okay, well, we can talk more, Jim, if we need to.
Right. Say,
Okay.
just for your information, one of my, Lori Bone, you've met Lori.
Yeah.
She sent me a story map she found with their tracking Parler posts from around the world.
Really?
And somebody had narrowed it down to Parler posts coming from military posts. In other words, they could take the data and filter and say, I only want to see Parler posts that were coming from military. They didn't show the actual posts, but you could, I mean, it was like, holy crap. People
There you
are
go.
finding all this stuff all over the world, and there's a record of it. And people can, and you could say, was there a pattern here of some kind? It was, I'll send you
Wow.
the link if you're interested, but there's,
No, please do. I'm interested.
That's pretty interesting. Yeah.
yeah.
Oh.
Well, obviously, like GIS has gotten tons of credit with like all the COVID tracking and
Oh, yeah.
everyone kind of like starts to understand what GIS, like I feel like more people know what GIS is now that they can look
Yeah.
at the Johns Hopkins or yeah.
Yeah.
All right,
Everybody's